I mentioned a couple weeks ago that Kylie and I were doing a 21-day Daniel fast. And it was awesome. We saw so many great results in our life, so much more energy, lost some weight, like feeling pretty good about it. And so we decided that we were going to continue on. But we had been doing kind of like a really stringent version of the Daniel fast. So raw fruits and vegetables, fresh milled bread, and peanut butter, and that was it. And so when we finished the 21 days, we were like, hey, let's just add in some protein. Let's do some like fish into the diet, which has been awesome. It's been great. But then last night I was done. I'd preached 3 different sessions at a high school event nearby, about 2,700 students, and I got home late last night and was looking over my notes, and Kylie had made some dinner for me before I could go to bed, and I was sitting and eating some fish from a few days before, and I realized that it was like a little bit more lemony and a little bit more sour than it was the first day, but I didn't think anything of it. I finished my dinner, and then I laid down in bed to look over my notes, and I was like, that was not lemon. I don't think that's what that was. And so at 2 a.m. this morning, I woke up and realized very quickly what the sour taste was on the food that I ate last night, and until about 6 a.m. this morning, I wasn't sure that I was gonna make it to church. So I say all that to say, y'all gonna have to help me. We're gonna have to do this together, okay? Because if I showed up for you, you're gonna show up for me, amen? Awesome. Hey, before we jump into the sermon, a couple of things I want to make sure you know about. I want to double down on a few things Tim and Hannah did a great job explaining. We are in the middle of our Hands in the House campaign. So Heart for the House broken up into 3 different campaigns this year. And Hands in the House is all around serving. It's all about you getting involved. And one of the things that will happen in a church our size is when it's not Super Bowl Sunday and everyone shows up, you walk into the room and you're like, oh, lights are running, screens are working, volunteers said hello, my kids are taken care of. They have it under control. They don't need anyone. And I just want to be very clear with you, that is far from the case. Okay, we sat with our teams, we asked, what are the needs that you have? And it came back, there's about 88 spots that need to be filled in our church in order for us to do the things that God is calling us to do. And not only that, there are some things that I believe God is calling us to do next that we're going to talk about at the end of the year in Heart for the House. And if we can't move the needle now on the number of people serving, there's no way we can do what God is going to call us to do next. There was a church back in the day that they would do what they called Volunteer Sunday, and they'd ask all their volunteers to show up in their volunteer shirts, and then anyone who wasn't wearing a shirt, they'd be like, stand up. Okay, now you got 2 options. Sign up to serve or don't come back. I'm not doing that to you today, okay? But I am saying we need you. We need you to get involved. And not only do we need you to build the church that God has entrusted to us, we need you to get involved because God wants to do something in you through your serving. And you have no idea how you getting involved might change your life and the life of the people around you. So 88 volunteers, if you are not serving somewhere, do not get to the end of February and step into March without at least checking out one of our environments and seeing what they're all about. I'd also say this, if you are serving somewhere, you may have capacity to do a little bit more. Maybe you can serve in 2 different spots, and if you could do that, that would serve the church and serve the kingdom incredibly well. At this event that I was at this weekend, I heard a story of a small group leader who was a single mom raising 2 kids on her own, and who heard that there was a need for small group leaders and said, I'm gonna jump in and help because I believe that God could use my story. So working 2 jobs, raising 2 kids on her own, still makes time for a group of teenage girls every single week to share with them the goodness of Jesus. And so if she can make time, I think we can all make time. And let's try to figure out some ways we can get involved. That's number 1. Number 2, 4-Day. 4-Day is core to who we are. And so if you're new to our church, 4-Day really is the DNA of our church. We wanna be a church that moves from consumer to participant. We want you to get involved in the things that God is doing in the world and in our city around us. And so 4-Day is part of the way that we do that. In the lobby, there's a table, and the rhythm of our church is that every week we ask people to bring clothing and canned good items so that we can support the needs of families in our community. And so for some of us, we've gotten out of the habit of doing that, or you didn't know that was an expectation because you came like halfway through and no one ever told you. But I want to just remind us that when you go look at your closet and you see a thing that you haven't worn in a while, pull it off and bring it in on a Sunday. If you're at the grocery store and you're buying things for yourself, grab 1 or 2 extra things and bring it for the table. There are people in our community who need the love and support, and it's our opportunity to show them that God sees them, loves them, and is for them. And when we meet their physical needs, it gives us a chance to meet spiritual needs as well. Amen? Let me tell you another reason this is important to me. Pastors all over the country this year and in recent years are constantly responding to things that are happening. Things that are happening online, things that are happening in our country, reports that are showing up, and they're looking at those and they're thinking all week long, what are we gonna say? How are we gonna respond? What are we gonna do? When we started this church, we just made a decision. We were never gonna be reactive, we're gonna be proactive. So I don't feel a pressure to respond to every current event. You know why? My answer is 4-Day. What do we think about people? 4-Day. How do we love people? 4-Day. How do we serve? 4-Day. What does God think? 4-day. We are going to be the hands and feet of Jesus because James says, what good is it to pray if you're not going to meet their needs? Jesus says, what good is it to say you follow me but not actually have the actions that follow suit, right? And so we're going to respond in that way. And so 4 days is a really big deal. Last thing, where are my guys at in the room? Where are my men at in the room right now? Why are y'all always quiet? If I were like, where are my ladies at? They'd be like, hi, right? And the guys are like, I'm here. I wanted to just take a minute to talk to y'all. We are going to do something for the first time in our church I'm very excited about. March the 14th, mark your calendars, we'll be hosting our first ever men's conference here at Home Church called Undivided. And we're going to spend some time, come on, so good. Thank you, Ader. We're going to spend some time leaning in together as men, talking about what it looks like to follow Jesus, building relationships with each other, talking about how to lead in our homes and in our families, or how to do singleness well. And I'm really excited for this event. I have some friends coming in town to speak. So I'll do one of the sessions. My friend Ken Locke, who's the chaplain for the Milwaukee Bucks, and the pastor to Giannis is coming in town to share as well. I also have my friend Grant Partrick, who's starting a new church in our city, but has been at Passion for a number of years, coming to share as well. So if you're a guy in the room, mark your calendars. In fact, you can do better. It's $25 for the day. You can go ahead and sign up right now. If you go to the Church Center app, just scan the QR code on your seat back, and you can sign up. Our hope is to have 100 men show up at this event, and we would love for you to not just come by yourself. This is a great opportunity to invite some friends. So if you work with someone and you wanted a chance to share the good news of Jesus with them, great opportunity to do that. If you have someone that you've been reaching out to for a while and they're not willing to come on a Sunday morning, this might be a thing that they would come to. And so 100 men in the room, Undivided Men's Conference, March 14. Any of my fellas in the room excited for that? Good. Show me your excitement with your registration. Okay, we are in week 2 of our series called Inside Job. And in this series, we've really been talking about one big idea when we kicked it off last week, that what's inside of you will come out of you. That what's inside of you will come out of you. That we spend a lot of time focused on our external life, focused on the way that we show up in the world, focused on the way that we live and the way that people interact with us, but we don't spend enough time thinking about the inner man or the inner woman, working on the things that are on the inside of us that will eventually show up in our lives. We kicked off this series by looking at Jesus' words in the Sermon on the Mount, where he starts by talking about our external. He says, hey, you are to be salt and light. You're to show up in the world as preservation. You're to show up in the world pleasurable, making things better. You're to show up in the world pure and set apart and different. And you are to show up in the world as the light of the world, drawing people to my goodness and the glory of God. And so Jesus starts with the external, but what he's going to do with the rest of the Sermon on the Mount is shift to the internal. He's going to shift to there are some things on the inside of us that need to be addressed in order for us to show up externally as the people that he's called us to be. And so today, we're going to shift in the same direction that Jesus is shifting in. And we're going to talk about one of the things on the inside of us that I think needs work for almost all of us in the room. I want to take you to the day Kylie and I got married, and immediately after that, we started getting asked a question, okay? I don't know if anyone else has had this trajectory in your relationship, right? Like you start dating someone, and the question is, when are you getting married? And then you get married, and you've been married for like all of 7 minutes, and like, when are you having kids? And then when you haven't like got after it right away, they're like, oh, kids are just so awesome and it's gonna be amazing. And I'm telling you, you're gonna hold them for the first time in the hospital and you're gonna understand the love of God like you never have before. And it's true. But they don't tell you that you're never gonna sleep again. They don't tell you that in the middle of the night, some little munchkin is going to get into your bed and they're going to toss and turn the whole night to keep you from sleeping. And they do not tell you that if you own anything nice, you might as well go ahead and throw it away because they're going to destroy everything that you own. That everything in the house is at some point going to end up broken. And what I've realized having a 5, 5, 4, and 2-year-old in the house is that all of the nice things, we just don't ever put them out anymore because they end up getting broken. Our kids get their hands on things and they just break. And the rhythm for us is that when things break, we just take those things, we pick them up off the ground, and we immediately put them where? In the trash. You throw them away. Anyone else like me that when things break, you naturally just throw them away? Okay, no, I told y'all gonna have to help me. We're doing this together. Anyone else in the room, when they break, you throw them away? Yeah. That's our natural tendency, isn't it? Because broken things don't have value to us. Broken things cannot be used. Broken things cannot serve us. So when things break, we naturally throw them away. The problem is that we take that mentality in other areas of our life where it doesn't belong, i.e. our relationships. Because when a person fails you, when they don't show up the way that you want them to, when they miss the mark, when they betray you, when they lie to you, when they hurt you. The natural tendency is to go, I'm going to take that relationship, and it goes in the trash. I'm getting rid of it. I'm done with them. I'm not dealing with them anymore. I'm moving on. I'm not friends with them anymore. They're not showing up in my life anymore. They're not a part of our family anymore. I take that relationship and it goes in the trash. But here's the problem, people. Here's the problem, guys. People are not objects. They cannot be thrown away. Because the relationship that you thought you just threw away, you run into that person again, don't you? You see them around. Or even if you don't see them around, you see someone that reminds you of them, or you experience something that reminds you of what they did. You see, the reality is we think we're taking the brokenness of that relationship and we're throwing it away, but what's actually happening is we're taking the brokenness of that relationship and we're carrying it with us. The hurt, the pain, the heartache, the betrayal, we carry it with us, and we don't even know it's there until someone says something similar, and now it's like, ooh, that kind of hurt. Where did that come from? Why do I feel so triggered right now? Why am I so cynical about people? Why don't I trust anyone anymore? Why do I feel so anxious around people? Why did all of my friendships suddenly change? Like something is happening inside of us that if we do not pay attention, it's going to grow into a worse thing. You see, that brokenness, the longer it stays with you, that hurt, the longer it stays with you, that frustration, the longer it stays with you, that bitterness, the longer it stays with you, it grows into this thing in us called anger. And the problem with anger is it can be subtle. You might not even know that there's anger in you because you don't feel like an angry person. Can I just tell y'all that's my story? Sat down with my counselor recently, who was like, I'm gonna have you take this 300-question quiz. And I'm like, ooh, I love these because I'm smart and I will figure out what you're trying to get out of me and I will answer these to get the result that I want. Joke's on you, psych man, you know? I take the quiz, it didn't quite work out that way. He calls me and says, I want to go over your results. And he goes, hey, Gerald, there's some anger in you that you got to work out. I was like, what are you talking about? I'm not an angry person. Like, I don't have fits of rage. I don't lash out on people. Like, I'm not angry. He goes, I didn't say you were angry. I said there's some anger. Meaning, there's some things inside of you that are showing up outside of you, and you don't know how they're showing up because just because you don't show up angry doesn't mean you don't have anger. He's going, you don't know how your relationship with your kids are being impacted by the thing that's in you that you're carrying. You don't know how much more intimacy you could have with your wife if you actually dealt with that thing. You don't know how much better your friendships could be or how closer you could be or what opportunities you would be able to walk into if you actually dealt with that thing. You see, there's this thing growing on the inside of you that is coming out of you and you can't even see it. And the problem with anger is that you won't see it immediately, but you will see it eventually. You'll see it in 20 years when your kids are like, I'm not coming home. You'll see it in 20 years when your kids are having kids and they're like, hey, we love you, but you can't be alone with them because I'm afraid of what might come out of your mouth. You'll see it when all of your friendships begin to dissipate and no one picks up the phone anymore. The problem with the anger that's in us is it eventually will come out of us. And before you know it, you're taking out your anger at work out on your kids. You're taking out the anger with your parents, out on your spouse. You're taking out, hear me, the anger of your past out on your future. And it is keeping you from becoming the person and stepping into the opportunities that God has for you. And so we have to figure out how to address it. Good news is we don't have to figure it out on our own. Jesus is going to address our anger. And he's going to do that as we continue on in our sermon series through the Sermon on the Mount. So if you have a Bible, you can turn to Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. Or you can just open up your Matthew book. Come on, if you have a Matthew book in the room, can you just hold it up? Let me just see it real quick. Oh, come on, that's amazing. So good. If you don't have a Matthew book, you can grab one, keep it. You can bring it with you to church every week. I also want to encourage you, do the daily devotionals in it. You're going to get to the end of the year and be so glad you did. But we're going to be looking at Matthew chapter 5, verse 17. And we're going to look at how Jesus begins to address this thing on the inside of us, our anger. Now, before he does that, though, he's going to address something else. So Matthew chapter 5, starting in verse 17, picking up where we left off, it says this. Do not think I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Okay, pause. When you hear Jesus say, don't think I came to abolish the law or the prophets, who immediately pops into your mind? Who? Moses, right? Last week we talked about that Jesus goes up on a mountainside, he's on a mountain, and that mountains in the Bible are significant. And so what we saw last week is Jesus is up on this mountain, and it's supposed to take us to a mountain in Genesis chapter 3, the mountain that Adam and Eve are on. And Adam and Eve on this mountain receive a curse from God. They sent down the mountain, they descend, and they spread this curse of sin into the rest of the world. But Jesus starts his public ministry, and he goes up on a mountain, and he invites his disciples up, and he doesn't curse them, he blesses them. And then he sends them down the mountain and says, now go take that blessing into the world. Go be salt and light. So we see one significant mountain moment, but what Jesus is going to show us is because he's God, he's always doing more than what we think he's doing. So we had one mountain moment, but now we're actually going to get two. This is a BOGO, friends. He goes, this is the Moses mountain moment as well. Because Moses goes up on the mountain, and what does he receive from God? The 10 Commandments. And he brings those 10 Commandments down, and he goes, hey, this is the way that we are to behave, watch this, to show the world that we belong to God. This is the way the people of God behave to show the world that we belong to God. So these commandments are intended to help us to live up to and live out the character of God. And Jesus shows up on the scene, and he goes, I'm now up on a mountain, and I want to take those commandments that you received, and I want to show you how to fulfill those. Hear me. I did not come to get rid of them. I came to live them out perfectly because you can't. I came to fulfill the law. And it says this. For truly I tell you, until heaven and earth disappear, not the smallest letter or the least of the stroke of a pen will by any means disappear from the law until everything is accomplished. Okay. The mission of Jesus to come from heaven down to the planet earth, to live the life we could not live, to die the death that we deserve, to rise again that we might have life in him, does not end at the resurrection. The mission of Jesus ends after Jesus ascends to heaven, and he makes a promise that he is going to come back and he's going to restore heaven and earth. So what is Jesus saying? When everything is accomplished, meaning when I start everything over, you're not going to have to worry about the law. But right now, I didn't come to get rid of that law. I came to fulfill that law. Hear me. The law shows us the heart and the character of God. We cannot throw it away. At the same time, we cannot live up to that law because we are imperfect people. So what Jesus is saying is not forget that and don't live up to that. He's saying try your best to be who God has called you to be, but when you fail and fall short, my grace will cover you because I paid the price. We don't get rid of the law. We trust Jesus to fulfill the law in us where we fall short. Therefore, anyone who sets aside one of these commands and teaches others accordingly will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. But whoever practices and teaches these commands will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Notice, Jesus doesn't say you won't be in the kingdom of heaven if you don't perfectly live up to the law. Because the way into the kingdom of heaven is not by your performance, it's by Jesus' sacrifice. He goes, but the rewards, the honor, God looking at you and saying, well done, is by recognizing the character of God has not changed and trying your best to be who God has called you to be by the power of the Holy Spirit and with the grace of Jesus Christ. He says you ought to know and live in accordance to the law. And then he says this in verse 20. He introduces us to a group of people. He says, for I tell you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the, help me, Pharisees and the teachers of the law, you will certainly not enter the kingdom of heaven. Okay, can I tell you what we do with a verse like this? We use theology to get to the finish line so we don't have to deal with the gravity of what Jesus just said. But the people who are listening to this don't know that the cross is coming. They don't know that Jesus is going to fulfill the law on their behalf. They don't know that his death, burial, and resurrection is going to be enough for them to stand righteously before God. So when people are hearing Jesus say this for the first time, they're going, wait a minute, time out. Jesus, you know who the Pharisees are, right? You know who the teachers of the law are, right? Like these are people who know the law, who are living by the law, and not only do they know it and live by it, they're holding all of us accountable to do the same. You're telling me I'm supposed to be more righteous than them? I'm supposed to be better than them? Jesus, that feels impossible. To which he would say, exactly. You can't do it on your own. See, part of the problem with living as Roswell is we have so much that we don't really need for anything. And part of the problem with being a Christian and living in a place like this is you do not have a desperation and a dependency on God because you can provide for yourself. But what Jesus is doing is he's going, I want you to feel the weight of your moral inferiority so that you can recognize you can't get there on your own. You need someone to help you. Let me help. So let's not rush past this to the finish line and immediately get to the cross and then live however we want. No. There is a standard that God has called us to that we cannot live up to, and the only way we get there is by recognizing and being desperate for Jesus to show up in our lives. Jesus says you have to be more righteous than them. Now, how is that possible? Fortunately, as Jesus continues on in his ministry, he tells us some of the issues with the Pharisees. One of the phrases that he uses to refer to them is he calls them whitewashed tombs. He goes, you look really good on the outside, but inside you are dead and you are filthy and there is nothing good in you. He goes, oh, you know the law and you might live the law. You behave the right way, but your heart is dead. Your heart is far from me. Your heart is dirty. And unless some things change on the inside of you, you are as good as an empty grave. You see, the issue with the Pharisees was not their behavior. It was their heart. There was a thing on the inside of them that needed to change, so that what was coming out of them actually looked like and honored God. And with that said, Jesus then switches to our inside. And he goes, let's talk about this anger. Verse 21. You have heard it said that by people long ago, that you shall not murder. What is he quoting when he says that? 10 Commandments, the law. Anyone who murders will be subject to judgment. But I tell you, anyone who is angry with notice these words, brother or sister, will also be subject to judgment. Okay, so what is Jesus doing? Jesus is saying, hey guys, I just want you to know, anger equals murder. Does that feel like a stretch to anyone? If it doesn't feel like a stretch to you, you're not actually reading the Bible. You're doing theology in your mind and not reading. Does that not feel like a stretch to anyone? You're telling me being mad at a family member is the same as killing them? Because being mad at them means I still have to see them. Killing them means they're gone. That sounds a whole lot better. So you're telling me those are one and the same. Why not just do this? You're telling me that me being upset with someone is the same as the person who's on death row for killing someone? That does not seem fair, Jesus. It doesn't seem right. Like, why are you equating these two things? It seems like a stretch. Notice, the 10 commandments that Jesus quotes are all about our what? Behavior. But Jesus goes, I came to fulfill that command, and this new command that I've come to give you is not about your behavior, it's about your heart. Because here's what he knows. Your behavior will never change until your heart does. He goes, so why do I say anger is equal to murder? Is because anger is the start of how murder begins. There's a thing that's happening in your heart that is going to lead to this external outcome. You see, what Jesus is doing in this moment is that he's not changing the standard, he's changing the starting point. He's not saying that murder is on the table. Go for it. I mean, come on, really. How many of us were like, Jesus showed up, so I guess the 10 commandments don't matter anymore. Let's murder people. Purge. How many of us are like, oh, Jesus showed up, so I guess adultery is cool now. Forgiveness, let's do it. No. He's going, the standard is still the same. But the way that you live out that standard starts in a different place. It's not with trying harder, it's with the change of your heart. He's saying you have to start at the heart because, friends, please hear me. Following Jesus is not about behavior modification, it's about heart transformation. The issue is not murder. The issue is the anger that happens in your heart before you ever get to murder. And here's why. The problem with anger is this, is that anger causes you to minimize. It causes you to minimize. Here's what I mean. When you are angry, you minimize a person, you minimize their humanity to the act or the event that made you angry. You minimize a person to that thing that they did that makes you frustrated or angry with them. All of a sudden, it's no longer a human being who's standing in front of you. It's a human being who did one thing that you hate. Minimize. And can I just tell y'all, I'm guilty of this. I did this with my dad for most of my life. Dad left in the 3rd grade. Some of you have heard me tell this story, and I was so frustrated with him, so angry. Different moments in my life would pop up. I needed advice on dating. Dad isn't there to help me. I needed to learn how to tie a tie, and I'm watching a YouTube video to figure it out. I'm mad. And as I get older and older, these life moments happen, and I'm like, where is my dad? Why didn't he show up? Why didn't he care to reach out? Why isn't he here for me? And then I have kids of my own, and guys, I thought I had gotten over it, but then I'm holding my little girls, and it gets worse. Because here I am holding this little baby girl in my arms, and I'm going, why would my dad miss this moment with me? This is the best thing that could have ever happened. And before I know it, there's this anger that's beginning to bubble up. And then the Lord said, you need to call him. I was like, no, call him. Sat down with my dad a couple years ago, saw him for the first time in around 27 years. We're sitting at Fellows Cafe, and I asked him 2 questions. Tell me who you are and tell me how you got here, or how I got here. And he begins to tell me a story about how his mom and dad abandoned him, how his dad left him for dead on multiple occasions, and had it not been for neighbors who happened to show up at that moment, he wouldn't even be here. How he makes it to the US and he ends up in this relationship with my mom and finds out that there's some messy things going on there and tries to end the relationship, and when he tries to end it, finds out that she's pregnant with me. Tries his best to show up, but he doesn't know how to. He never had a dad. He's not even from the States. And then the more that I hear his story, I realize my dad has Bell palsy, half of his face is paralyzed, that he's on the autism spectrum, so interacting with other human beings is difficult for him. He's kind of a recluse. He has ADHD, so he'll think about doing something and then just all of a sudden forget to do it and get on to something else. Diabetic. And what happens for me at this table is I start to see my dad not as this event of him leaving, but I start to see the whole of his humanity. Now, please hear me. Is him not showing up and not calling and not being there for me for 20-something years right? No. But does it make sense? Yes. And hear me. I can say it makes sense without making it okay. I can see the whole of his story and go, well, if you didn't have parents and you have all of these health issues and you're wired in a way that connecting with humans is difficult, it makes sense why you didn't reach out. It makes sense why you didn't show up. It doesn't make it okay, but at least it makes it make sense to me. You are a human and you fell short and you missed the mark, but the one event that you did is not the sum of who you are. Anger will force us to minimize, to turn a person into an event, rather than a human being who's made in the image of God. But it doesn't end there, it continues on. Jesus says this next. He says again, anyone who says to, y'all help me, A, brother or sister, Raka, that's just an insult. It's like, you idiot, you stupid person, like you, right? Like that. Is answerable to the court. And anyone who says you fool is in danger of the fire of hell. Okay, wait a minute. If I call someone an idiot, Jesus, I'm in danger of hell. If that's true, if you've ever sat in Atlanta traffic, you're in trouble, right? No, that's not what he's saying. What he's saying is this. The moment that you begin to speak negatively about someone, something is in you that is now beginning to come out of you, and it ought to be a warning sign to you that you are moving far away from who God has called you to be. That you are in threat of losing your own soul because of what somebody else did. You see, the warning sign that there's anger in your heart is the thing that begins to come out of your mouth. When you start to insult people and speak negatively about people, here's what you're doing. You're dehumanizing them. That you are shaping how others view their humanity with your words. And so it starts with you minimize them to the thing that they did, but now you're using your words to shape the way that everyone else sees them. And what you're doing with your words is you're making them smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And here's the deal. The smaller you can make them, the bigger you seem. He goes, you better watch your words because they're evidence that there's something going on in your heart. And you are using your words in a way that strips them of their humanity. The things you post, the things you comment, the things you say are shaping the way that other people see them. So he goes, how do you get to murder? Well, it starts with you minimize. You're angry. And then that anger starts to come out of you, and then you insult them and you dehumanize them. But then Jesus takes a weird turn. Like he's talking about how we feel about them, but then he says this in verse 23. He says, therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there you remember that your, what's the word? Brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar and go first and be reconciled to them. Then come and offer your gift. He shifts from, hey, you're frustrated with them, to you're in the middle of a church service and you realize, oh man, someone might be frustrated with me. Now, before we go any further, can I just say to you, if you show up in this room on a Sunday and you can read something like this, and think of someone that you might have hurt or offended, and you can stand with your arms high in worship, but you are unwilling to go and have a conversation, Jesus is going, there's a problem. And can I just tell you, I'm not coming at you because I've been there. Moments where I'm like, I don't even think I should preach this sermon until I go call that person. But for God's grace, he gives me space to figure it out. So what Jesus is saying, friends, is please hear me. You're sitting in a room like this. This should create some urgency in you. This should create some tension in you to go, I need to do something about this. He says, if you're at the altar and you realize your brother or sister has something against you, you go to them. Now here's the problem. When we get hurt, we have a tendency to create two categories. You're either the hero or you're the villain. You're either the hero or the villain. Now, I know y'all are holier than me, so you probably don't do this, but when someone hurts me, you know what category I put myself in? This one. I'm the good guy in the story. It was all their fault. They're the bad guy in the story. They're the issue. I'm the hero, they're the villain. Here's the problem, though. The hero has to be 100% good. The villain has to be 100% bad. But you know what Disney has been doing recently? They've been making movies like Maleficent to show you that even the bad guy has a story. Because here's the truth. The only person that's 100% good is God. And the only person that's 100% bad is Satan. So to put yourself into this category is to say, I'm as good as God. And to put yourself into this put them into this category is to say they're as worthless as Satan. The reality is we don't fit in either of these categories because we are both good and bad. We are both the hurt and the one who has inflicted hurt. We are both the betrayed and the betrayer. We are both the victim and the one who is victimized. We are both good and bad. The only label that we get to put on ourselves is human. Because the reality is when we stand across from one another, I've wronged you and you have wronged me. And even if it's not in that specific circumstance, the reality of your life is that you are not 100% good and they are not 100% bad. That there's good and bad in each of us. There's hero and villain in each of us. And quoting the great Harvey Dent, great theologian, who says, you either die a hero or you live long enough to become a villain. Which I was actually on the phone with my best friend Reed last night talking about the sermon. And I said, quoting the theologian Batman, and he goes, it wasn't Batman who said it was Harvey Dent, and you need to correct it because someone will sit in the room and think, I don't need to do what he's about to say next because he's wrong. It was Harvey Dent. Y'all actually do that, you know that, right? It's crazy. These categories aren't for us. The category is humanity. And the reason I think Jesus makes this break in the story is because he wants you to realize that the same way that you minimize and dehumanize other people, they could do the same with you because you're not perfect either. And then he jumps back in and he says this. Settle matters quickly with your brother or with your adversary who is taking you to court. Do it while you are still together on the way, or your adversary may hand you over to the judge, and the judge may hand you over to the officer, and you may be thrown into prison. Truly, I tell you, you will not get out until you have paid the last penny. Do you notice what just happened there? You have an issue with a brother or sister that made you angry. Your brother or sister frustrated you, so you called them a fool, you called them raka, you called them stupid, you insult them. But now you and your brother or sister are no longer brother or sister. Now all of a sudden they're an adversary, they're an enemy, they are other than. What happens in this moment is we relabel them. And the issue with relabeling is this: we are now beginning to villainize that person, which means we are saying your humanity is evil in and of itself. Your existence is not good. We minimize, we dehumanize, and then we villainize. The sum of your existence is not good. I'm relabeling you as something other. You are not like us. That's another great theologian, by the way, Kendrick Lamar. They're not like us. If you know that song, there's sin in your life. I'm just saying, right? Hear me. When anger turns to insult, and insult causes you to relabel, when you minimize, dehumanize, and then villainize, you know what it's easy to happen next? Murder. for you to eliminate them for your life. For you to go, if their existence is not good, then why would I be around them? If their existence is not good, then their existence just shouldn't be. It should cease. Friends, hear me. This is the way that domestic violence happens. Is you minimize a person, you dehumanize them, you villainize them, and now all of a sudden it's okay for you to be violent towards them. This is the way that murder happens. You minimize the person, you dehumanize them, you villainize them, and now it's okay for you to attack them and get them off the face of the planet. Friends, this is how genocide happens. You minimize, dehumanize, villainize, and now we wipe out an entire group of people. And at a macro level, we look at this progression and we go, this is wrong. Absolutely not. That should never happen. But then let's look at it at a micro level. Because the reality of being murdered means that you don't exist to me anymore. Your existence ceased. So what happens when you minimize, dehumanize, and villainize a friend, and now all of a sudden the friendship doesn't exist? They died to you. What happens when a family member now becomes an enemy because you minimized based on an event that took place? You dehumanized based on the words that you said. You villainized and said, they're not good, they're not safe, they can't be in our family anymore, and now they're no longer a part of your family. You murder the relationship. You see, on a macro level, we all look at this and go, this is wrong, but on a micro level, we do the same thing and aren't even aware of it. And we are killing people in relationships all around us. So Jesus goes, hey, you may not realize this, but on the surface, murder seems really bad and anger seems okay, but I just want to let you know that anger is just the first step in a process that's leading you to kill the relationships and the people around you. So you got to do something with that anger. Now, before we talk about how we recover, I just need to say this. Go back and read through the text on your own time, but I hope that you notice that Jesus says, hey, when you are angry with a brother or sister, when you call them raka or you fool, when you are at the altar and you realize they have an issue with you, then you go do something about it. Notice, Jesus doesn't go when they or if they. And our natural tendency is to go, they. And Jesus is going, no, buddy. You. Don't point the finger at them. Look at yourself. It starts with you, not them. And listening to a sermon like this, it is easy to weaponize it against someone else and go, they need to do this. They have minimized me. They have dehumanized me. They have villainized me. It's them. But what Jesus is calling you to do is to look in your own heart and go, what about me? What's my part? What have I done wrong? My dad says it this way, once you take a slice, you've got to play nice. When you realize that you had a part to play, you no longer can point the finger there. You have to point the finger at yourself. So the question is, how do we recover? I'll tell you the first thing. The first thing is you realize this, is that you can't change their heart, but you can invite God to change yours. Stop worrying so much about them. Ask God to do something in here. You can't control their response. You can't control what God does in them. You can't control their openness or their willingness, but you can begin to ask God to do something in you. That's the first step. But then the second step is we move towards forgiveness. We move towards forgiveness. I've been reading this book called The Book of Forgiving by Desmond Tutu. Phenomenal book, by the way. You should go through and read it because I do not have enough time to cover it in depth, but I do want to give you his fourfold path to forgiveness. 4 steps that he says are necessary to forgive. He says the first thing is this, you got to tell the story. You got to tell the story. Say what happened. Say what happened to you. Say what took place. Tell of the event. Tell of the circumstance that happened. And he says this, tell the story as much and as often as you need to until you can tell the story without feeling pain around it. You got to tell the story. For some of us, the reason that we're still angry is because we feel like the holy, godly thing to do is to not tell anyone about it. Because you don't want to gossip, which is at some level good. You don't need to tell everyone, but you do need to tell someone about it. You do need to talk about it. Because by not talking about it, you're just keeping it on the inside. I was talking to John, Christian's dad, after the service, and he reminded me of this quote. He said, bitterness is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. Keeping it in yourself is poisoning yourself and waiting for the impact to take place on them. And can I just tell y'all, the impact is not coming for them. You have to do something about it yourself. Start telling the story is the first thing he says. The next thing he says is this, is you have to name the hurt. Because the story is just the story, but there's a thing underneath the story, and that's what's really bothering you. It's the fact that you feel betrayed. It's the fact that you feel jealous. It's the fact that you feel abandoned. It's the fact that you feel like something was taken from you. It's the fact that you feel deceived. It's the fact that you feel taken advantage of. And the only way for you to figure out what the hurt is for you to tell the story enough and pay attention to the words coming out of your mouth for you to then realize, oh, that's the thing that I'm actually upset about. It's not what they did, it's how it made me feel. It's not what they did, it's what I believed about them or about myself because of it. I gotta name that hurt. Hear me, you cannot deal with it until you name it. If you tell the story, you name the hurt. And then the third thing he says is you offer forgiveness. You offer forgiveness. Now, when we think about forgiveness, we think it's like giving them a pass. It's saying they're off the hook. It's saying that like, you know, they're not accountable for it anymore. Someone needs to pay. They need to pay for it. And if I forgive them, then they're not gonna pay. But can I just tell you what forgiveness actually is? It's not letting them off the hook. Forgiveness is this. Forgiveness is canceling the debt. It is not saying that they're not wrong. It's you saying you don't owe me anymore. You don't owe me an apology. You don't owe me a conversation. You don't owe me trying to go back in the past and fix what's already been done. Another way that Desmond Tutu talks about forgiveness is he says this: forgiveness is the recognition that the past is never going to be better than it was, but your future can be. Forgiveness is not letting them off the hook. Forgiveness is recognizing there's a debt and you saying, you don't have to pay the debt to me. Now, how is that possible? Well, here's how. If you're a Christian in the room, it's possible for you. If you're a non-believer in the room, good luck. I don't know how you're gonna do this. But for a Christian in the room, here's how you move forward. The way you are able to cancel the debt is not in your own strength or your own power. It is by 3 words that were spoken by Jesus at the end of his life. On the cross, he said these 3 words: it is finished. 3 English words, 1 Greek word, tetelestai. That word tetelestai is an accounting term. It's an accountability term. It's a banking term. It means you owe a debt, and once you've paid off that debt, the banker stamps on the debt, paid in full. Tetelestai, it's done. No longer owed. It's been paid for. Hear me. The way that it's possible for you to cancel the debt is because forgiveness isn't just canceling the debt, it's actually transferring it. It's saying, you don't owe me because Jesus paid for you. In the same way that Jesus paid for me and forgave me, he'll forgive you. In the same way that Jesus gave me a second chance, he can give you a second chance. So whether you ever apologize to me, I know God's grace is good enough for you. Whether you ever acknowledge me, I know God's grace is good enough for you. Whether you ever come back and acknowledge the wrong that was done, I know God's grace is good and sufficient for you. So you don't owe me. You can settle it with him. And the good news is he's paid the debt for you. So y'all work that out, but you don't owe me anymore. And once you do that, you can walk away free. And you don't have to carry the weight of their decision, of their past, of their story. And you don't have to let anger become insult. And insult leads you to villainize them and relabel them. And that relabeling lead to murder. He goes, no, you can stop the process right at the beginning. Hey, I realize I'm angry right now, and my tendency is to minimize you to what you did. But rather than doing that, I'm gonna choose to see the whole of your humanity, and I'm gonna hand that humanity over to God and let him take care of the debt. You don't owe me anymore. It's forgiven. And then the last step, he says, is then you decide, do you renew or release? Renew or release. Please hear me. Forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. And as a pastor, I've wrestled with this for a while because I'm like, if Jesus says you will be judged at the same measure that you forgive others as I have forgiven you, I'm like, I don't want to get to heaven and be like, Jesus, like when you forgive me, you say I can come back in a relationship, but I forgave them and I don't want to be around them anymore, so I must be wrong. So I can't make sense of this. And the more that I wrestled with it, the more that I just realized I had a bad theology of forgiveness. Because the reality of the cross is this: Jesus at the cross offered forgiveness to all of us. He canceled the debt and paid the debt, whether you choose to accept it or not. Forgiveness is on the table. But in order for you to be reconciled to God, you actually have to step into the forgiveness that he offered. You have to recognize your sin and your brokenness, and accept his forgiveness in order for reconciliation to occur. So what does forgiveness and reconciliation look like for us? It looks like you making the decision, regardless of what they do, debt's canceled. You don't owe me anymore. Oh, but if you want to reconcile, there's some things you have to acknowledge, and you have to move in our direction. And as I move towards forgiveness and as you move towards me, then reconciliation can be on the table. Hear me, forgiveness is always an option. Sometimes reconciliation is not. Forgiveness only takes you, reconciliation takes two. You can tell the story, you can name the hurt, and you can offer forgiveness. And then let God tell you if you renew or if you just need to release. For some of you in the room, the person that you're angry at is not here anymore. They passed away. But you can still work this process. The end is just release for you. You can't do anything to restore it right now, but you can tell the story. You can name the hurt, and you can offer forgiveness. And you can release yourself of the anger that has the potential to kill, steal, and destroy from you. So what do we do with all of this? I think a good reading of scripture should always lead to prayer. So I think what we do when we recognize there's something in us that needs to change and we cannot change it on our own, we pray. And so I want to give you 3 prayers to pray. The first one is this. For some of us in the room, we just got to be honest. I don't want to forgive them right now. I don't. Hear me. God will not deal with your persona. He will only deal with your person. So stop trying to be the perfect Christian. Just be human and let him be the perfect one. It's okay to say to God, I don't want to forgive them. And then start praying this prayer. But Lord, would you help me want to? That's the first step. Lord, help me want to forgive them because right now I don't want to. For some of us, that's the prayer you need to pray this week. Not forgive them, Lord, or help me to forgive them. Help me want to. For others of us, the second step, the second prayer is I do know that I want to forgive them. I just don't know how to start. And so maybe the prayer is, Lord, would you help me to forgive? Help me to do this. I cannot do it on my own. And for all of us, I think it would be worthwhile to pray the third, Lord, show me where I need to be forgiven. Show me my fault and my brokenness and help me to deal with that. Change my heart so that I might be obedient to you. I don't know which prayer is for you, but I think one of those 3 prayers might break something off of you this week. One of those 3 prayers might increase your empathy this week. One of those 3 prayers might lessen the anger this week and might allow you to walk a path not towards murder, but actually towards forgiveness. And that's what God wants for you, because that's what he's offered to you. Hear me, forgiven people forgive people. And so let's be a people of forgiveness. So Jesus, would you help us? Help us to want to forgive. Help us to practice forgiveness, and help us to be aware of where we need forgiveness from others and from you. We love you. In Jesus' name, amen.
You're listening to audio from Home Church Roswell, located in Roswell, Georgia. For more information about this ministry or to give to this ministry, please visit homechurchroswell.com.